Okay, so soon to be good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for. I'd like to thank the panel first for coming because, I think this is a very unusual topic for an energy storage forum and energy generation. But considering that nowadays a lot of companies really want to include renewable energy as part of their strategy to enhance their commitments in environmental and social topics. I guess we can discuss this today. So I'll just go right ahead. I understand everybody wants to go out to lunch, so we'll just do this as quick as possible. So first of all, considering that we're looking at not really on the financing or the economics of renewable energy, but on the environmental and social side, what do you think are the benefits of incorporating environmental and social issues into the overall renewable energy strategy? And what do you think are also the challenges? And could I have Ms. Marge go first and then go all the way to Benji?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jonas. So there are long-term benefits of incorporating environment and social issues in overall renewable energy strategy. First, if we are to relate to a renewable energy company, as an RE developer, the main goal of this enterprise is to have clean and affordable energy. That goal is already related to environmental issue or environmental protection and related to climate change and reduction of greenhouse gas emission. At the same time, it also involves social issues for livelihood and employment that comes with Philippine laws. So this is required under Energy Regulation 1-94 on benefits to host communities. So if you will develop an RE project, you need to comply with all these laws, especially the like having a corporate social responsibility program at the same time. And you will hire at least majority to a local citizen in the host community or host local government unit. So it's also required by our labor laws, and at the same time, during the construction project, at the same time during the operation. So there are renewable energy developer and also local government that has a partnership in terms of employment of local citizen, and it would be integrated to the local ordinance of a certain local government unit.
Thank you, Ms. Marge.
Oh,
Sir Matthew.
I'll let you go ahead.
Okay.
Really? Thanks, Matt. Well, I'm from finance. I'm an auditor, so I'd like to keep this practical also, based on what we observe in practice. So nowadays, finance moves not just based on financial performance of companies, but also based on their ESG performances. So that's why we see proliferation of ESG communication and reports, or sustainability reports. So in that sense, renewable energy plays a vital role so that we'll achieve significant or drastic cuts in GHG emissions. And GHG emissions is one of the metrics required or being disclosed in sustainability reports. And in fact, investors look at these KPIs when they try to deploy capital. So it's not just market trends, but also regulations are fastly catching up. We have standards, international standards coming up, which require GHG emissions disclosure. So we're not just talking about scope 1, scope 2, direct emissions and indirect emissions, but even scope 3 emissions, which would entail a larger undertaking by the company to be able to gather and summarize data. That's going to be a mandated disclosure based on this new sustainability standard. So in short, renewable energy, I think it plays a vital role for companies to achieve their carbon reduction targets I'm sure your companies and others have made commitments and pledges to become net zero by a certain year, maybe 2030, 2050. And this option, renewable energy source, provides, I guess, a strategy, for companies to be able to transition into that lower carbon economy.
Thanks, Benj.
Yeah, so maybe just to add to what they said, I think taking a step back, right now having some form of ESG as part of your business model is slowly becoming the bare minimum, particularly for the more developed markets, and that's slowly coming into the developing and emerging markets. No, you have the bigger conglomerates already starting to put ESG as part of their DNA, as a way to show the world that we are aligned with international best practice. We are doing doing the right way of doing business, and again, it's the right way of evolving in terms of doing business in the country. Now, with focus on renewable energy, ESG, as they have noted, is not just limited to CO2 emissions avoided. It covers also the S and the G, which are parts that are normally overlooked. It will just depend on how aggressive a company is in terms of adopting standards. Are you going to just comply with legal, regulatory, or are you going as far as international best practice, which can be very, very strict and very, very tedious, but it provides a high standard for investors to know that they're putting their money into the right use, and that's it. It's aligned with their also ideals. So that's why, at least particularly for renewable energy projects, it can be quite tedious. Particularly, emerging markets aren't really the best way to adopt developed market standards, where we're still maybe a few years ahead, particularly in the ways we do business. But we're on the right track, and at least companies need to start looking at ESG as part of their normal corporate hygiene. It has to be a bare minimum, not just to comply with regulations, but also to make sure that they're doing business the right way.
Yeah. Jonas, maybe I could add on a bit. I think Matt and I talk about investor attractiveness, mainly about sustainable finance. But there are direct benefits also of ESG. So there is positive correlation also of good ESG practices with financial performance. And that is because organizations are forced to look at holistically what are the value drivers for the organization. And in terms of risk management, they are also forced to look on a longer horizon. Now, because we are looking at different kinds of risks, so this would not manifest in 3 months or even years, 5 years. So we are talking about decades type of risk. So for example, climate change. So improvement in financial performance and also better risk management. So these are other benefits of incorporating ESG. Now, there's a second part to your question about challenges. So ironically, I think many companies have earnings pressure from their stockholders. So every quarter, I think they're expected to show up profits and maybe several times a year declare dividends. But investing in ESG requires some compromise with respect to earnings. So there has to be a balancing act between earnings expectation and also the company's investments in ESG.
Thank you, Benj.
Just to add, so it was mentioned earlier about the sustainability reporting. So it's under the Securities and Exchange Commission. that was in 2019. So it's relatively new, and it covered all publicly listed companies. So it's under the corporate governance framework. So ESG is also under the corporate governance framework. So the challenge would be the localization of accepting ESG into every company's, as it was mentioned, DNA, or it could be subsumed in the systems and operations and processes internally. So in the global trend, post-COVID world or post-COVID age, it's really, it has increased ESG investing globally. And so these global trends would hopefully be a window of opportunity for local companies in the Philippines, not only publicly listed, but also specifically RE companies. And if you are familiar with the Institute of Corporate Directors, there are now ESG courses on integrating it in their business operation. And we do have existing practices with our local companies as well in terms of they applying energy efficient appliance internally. They do have electric vehicles for their employees, so it involves social and environmental aspects internally in business operations.
Thank you, Ms. Marge. And actually, I'd like to anchor that to what Ms. Ruth mentioned earlier. Pre-pandemic, there was not really enough investment in the RE space. During the pandemic, it just shot up dramatically. And it's also kind of like that in the overall ESG space, linking, because we did have a realization that it's no longer just profit, but also looking into an environmental approach or a social approach in doing business has also gained more traction, more so during the pandemic. So thank you to the panel for that. I'll just move on to the next question. So could you share with us your experience in working with companies that have benefited because they've already integrated environmental and social issues, particularly the integration of RE, like solar or batteries in this case that we have right now. Can you share with us your own experience on it? Yes.
Okay. So I'll start with. So I've been a researcher in the university. So I work with an RE developer, Alter Energy, the pioneer in wind energy development in the Philippines. So it is the same management that built the biggest and largest wind farm in North Winbangi Bay. So they also developed the Rizal Wind Farm. That was my focus of my university research. And they have benefited in including the environment and social issues in their vision as a company and their mission. So it is subsumed in their practices internally and externally. So they did not just comply with the benefits to host communities regulations, but they've been a initiator in terms of having a positive impact to the Pililla Rizal citizens. So they did have environment trainings and information advocacy campaign. They developed tourism information center in terms of information awareness regarding renewable energy as a new project in the locality. At the same time, their employees volunteers for tree planting and reforestation of those land affected by the windmills that was built in Pililla Rizal. And in terms of governance, they followed the quadruple approach globally, a global standards that not only the financial performance of the company, but as well as employee satisfaction, carbon reduction, and that contributed to the credibility and trust of its investors and customers, and it built their reputation. So it's like their brand that they built in developing renewable energy.
So in short, what you're saying is that because of that commitment to do RE in the community in Rizal, in Pililla, it brought out much more.
Yes, they have developed an offshore tourism that gave, I think, 400,000 tourist visitors. So the locality, not only the municipality, but also the provincial government gained income. So money comes in, investment comes in, not only the RE industry but other industries as well.
Okay, thank you. Would the gentleman like to add?
Okay, thanks, Matt. Well, I think renewable energy is the new sexy. As a auditor in SGV and Ernst & Young, we have a lot of clients in the power generation space. And we've seen those in traditional energy moving into renewable energy, even if they have very large portfolio of thermal energy. They are already venturing into renewable energy. And it's not just because of I guess, altruistic reasons or because of ESG narratives, but they see economic benefits in putting bets in this space, in the renewable energy space. And we've seen that in a lot of our clients. First, access to capital. Companies with a very good ESG platform or very good renewable energy are able to have access to very good capital, no, whether debt or equity. And also the returns, although maybe in a longer horizon, the returns are also makes economic sense, no? Because for this project, the government provide fit rates. Okay, so there's really economic benefits in the renewable energy play.
And maybe to add, no, a lot of power companies are adopting the RE track, not just because it's the way to go, but because there are real economics to it. So remember the past two to 3 years, before everything went back to normal, maskless. We had the time wherein coal prices were around $300 to $400 per metric ton. LNG also exploded, and cost of generation was around 15 to 11 pesos per kilowatt hour. And remember, I don't know if you remember your PPA history in the Philippines. PPAs were set at around 45 pesos per kilowatt hour. You can imagine the gap that the generators had to cover, particularly generators with very thermal heavy portfolios. Now, having RE as part of your portfolio will provide you a power supply that will not be affected majority by commodity price increases. No? It will just be priced based on your straight depreciation and your OPEX, which can, in long term, allow you to bid at around, at least without batteries, no? It can allow you to bid at around 3 to 4 pesos per kilowatt hour already. And we are there. It won't give you 24/7 power. That's a very different conversation. But again, you can take a look at it as if you were a power player and you started expanding your portfolio, and then you wanted to be an RES player as well, no? Having RE as part of your portfolio not just enhances your ability to get capital and investors, but also it really expands your ability to spread your cost and really expand your ability to get your energy from other sources. That's on the business model side. I think that's one good benefit as well.
Yes. So, in relation to the sessions earlier, it was mentioned that there was problem in terms of intermittency with solar, renewable, solar and wind energy, for instance. So, as I mentioned earlier, the RE developer, Alter Energy, it's not only in wind. So, once it has established the wind energy business, it also step in with solar and hydro as well. So it's a diversified portfolio of wind, hydro, and solar, and energy storage as well. And that maintain its cash flow throughout the year. So it has its long-term benefits in terms of diversified portfolio.
Just quickly, I recall, in addition to the economic benefits, I think there's also positive impact on the brand and also the reputation of the company. And oftentimes, this translate into stronger stock prices. No? So these companies are able to trade at a premium because of all these intangibles, which are not reflected in their financial statements.
All right. Thank you to the panel. Before I give the discussion to our audience, I just have one more question. Probably they're now wondering, okay, how can we really start developing a strategy or communicating our strategies as a renewable energy company to potential clients? How to integrate the ESG component into the pitch, if you will. And how can companies also look toward the opposite direction in terms of trying to see how a renewable energy companies could also help their strategy as well. Yeah.
I think private enterprises, especially RE companies, should walk their talk. So in terms not only, as mentioned earlier, not just in compliance, but as well with their business operation. So in terms of branding, so communicating their brand, it will boost their reputation. At the same time, consistency is the key. So it's a long-term commitment. Like for instance, an RE developer or a company would continue, not just for a year or 2 years, there are different programs for environment or social issues as well, but they will be consistent and committed towards that goal. So they will have innovation in terms of, continuing innovation in terms of developing strategies and approach that will benefit not only their company financially, but also mitigating the risk and also for the community as well.
Matt, yeah?
Oh, go ahead. Oh, sige. So, maybe on my end, no, two things lang. Number one is it has to be real. It has to be part of a DNA. So, unless it's part of your strategy, ideally, the sponsor itself, up to the owner, eats, breathes, speaks, walks, talks ESG. That's the ideal situation, wherein you have a sponsor, you have an owner who really just thinks ESG in all aspects of business. That's the best case scenario. But then again, as I mentioned, we live in the real world. And we live not just in the real world, we live in the Philippines emerging market. So there are things here that you can't change in the next 24 hours, next 12 years, next 12 months, next 5 years. Like for example, thermal, I can't remove thermal anytime soon. Not even in the next 10 years without causing blackouts. So there's a smart way of integrating ESG while maintaining business as usual as part of a transition. And I think companies, if the company is not ready, everything is not lost. It can start with RE, because RE is something that is already very profitable. And by tagging on RE as part of a portfolio, it can start that. It can use that as a catalyst to change the entire way the group looks at business. No? And I think that's the smart way of doing it, particularly for companies here in the Philippines or groups here in the Philippines, wherein I'm not going to force change overnight. I'm going to do a very, very good strategic energy transition. And that's where you start plugging in the ESG, making sure that everybody that I'm displacing gets covered, making sure that I follow all the rules and regulations, making sure that I try to minimize emissions and everything. So again, two ways of doing it. Thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Matt and Marge just discussed. So tone from the top, I guess that's a very big factor to really get the whole organization moved to the right direction. And also being practical and realistic. No? So ESG, these are very high standards and ideals. And the reality is there are a lot of considerations. No? It's not something that you're able to achieve overnight. So Rome was not built in a day, right? So we have to be practical and realistic. And I guess what I want to add is we need to consider all stakeholders, okay? So when we talk about ESG, it's not about the investors alone or the owners alone or even the boards. No, we have to consider the broader group of stakeholders. No? So you have suppliers, and companies are very dependent on suppliers, and somehow they should be able to influence also the ESG practices of their suppliers. Okay, so that's one. Second, customers. No, so earlier in the previous panel discussion, I heard about the changing preferences of customers. No, so customers now would prefer to use renewable energy, for one reason or another. So we have to be mindful also of all these externalities, of all these stakeholders, and how they impact the organization. So it's kind of out-in approach in looking at the organization through the ESG lens. And at the same time, there's also an in-out perspective. No? So you have to look at your impacts on the environment and society. So it has to be both ways. No? Impact of externalities to the organization and the impact of the organization to the outside world. And if you are able to blend both of these together in your sustainability report, in your narrative, and in your value creation story, I guess that will be a very compelling evidence that indeed the organization has incorporated ESG in its DNA.
I see Ms. Marge, maybe you want to add something also.
Yeah, may I add? Earlier session, so it was mentioned in relation to RE, private companies in RE sector, it was mentioned about their challenges and barriers in developing RE related to land acquisition, implementation challenges, most especially when they mentioned land acquisition, it refers to the local government unit or the area or location that they want to build an RE. So the challenge is social acceptability. So it is the most crucial part of RE development, and it is also under the requirements of the law and with environment impact assessment and the local government code of 1991. So if you want to surmounted this barrier or challenge, there is a need to engage local government, at the same time the host community, the local citizen, by having, like mentioned earlier, research and development. And we can also learn from those successful RE developer and other private companies and publicly listed companies. And I think the solution in terms of integrating ESG issues or concerns with private developer is that in relation to host community is to include corporate social responsibility program because it will benefit not only the company as well as the community to achieve the social acceptability and endorsement aspect in the locality, because the local community will gain from it, will benefit from it, and it is a win-win situation between the private developer and the host community as well, so that you can get the LGU endorsement and also the citizen of that local government unit. So for instance, as I may add in the best practice, not related to, not an RE, but it contributes to the sustainable development goal on affordable and clean energy. So like university, I'm an alumni of De La Salle University Dasmariñas, and I also had researches on tourism industry before. And they have this sustainability mindset. So it's a paradigm shift to companies and their awareness and appreciation on the importance of sustainable development, because they can save energy in terms of using energy efficient appliances or by solid waste management for environment related. And also, I have friends with my shelter foundation. So, Liter of Light has developed a it's really a zero carbon solar lamps that helps poor communities to have their to have lights in the community. So these are examples of grassroots-driven, at the same time community-driven approach that can work hand in hand with their corporate social responsibility program. Because big companies like Shell Foundation, they have this foundation, Be Bound Foundation, that's also member of League of Corporate Foundations, that they include CSR, and then they work together for not only for the community, but also awareness in terms of these issues. So it can be integrated with ESG goals as well.
Thank you. I believe, Matt, would you like, okay. All right, thank you. I believe we have time for 1 or 2 questions, and I open it to the audience, if there's any. Okay, mukhang gutom na. Yes. Sorry about that.
I know that it is disappointing for any panel not to have questions, but I just want to get a show of hands. How many of you here are companies that are interested in this discussion because you want to be environmentally sound and climate smart and not energy companies?
Yeah.
So all you, only one. So all the rest are energy companies, right? How many are not yet in the energy field but want to go into it as an energy company? Startups. Okay. I have three comments. No? Number one is that those of you who are still looking for assistance for you to do ESG, which is the topic here, I just want you to know that ESG is only one of the systems that are being internationally used. Before, we had the GRI, but if you need assistance, there is an NGO that is helping business companies to adopt this. That is the Business for Sustainable Development. We created that originally as Philippine Business for the Environment to help our companies become environmentally sound, and they have a website. No? Second comment is that I think, do we have regulators here? I think we should always have regulators so that we will not be only talking to ourselves and talking about our complaints, etc., because that is a big part of our complaints, right? That we have too many regulators. And I will suggest that when we do that, we do not forget that we should be kind not only to foreign investors, but to local companies that are needed to partner with the foreign investors. Like almost all of them need partners. Then we have to put up startups, and some of you raise your hands when I ask that. Have you tried to register a startup on energy? I tried to do it without hiring a lawyer. And I tell you, we really need regulators to deal with. We have to partner with them because it has taken me a lot of time just to take the first step. Nobody from SEC? Actually, the chair there is a friend of mine, but I think their fast lane system before is better than the online system now. Okay, so that's my main comment. We need to partner with them and not forget that we need to assist also our Filipino companies that will be needed to help the investors navigate in our environment and really implement the projects that they have. And the last comment that I have is that it seems to me that everybody in the chain, to start from SEC to get local permits, they have all developed regulators' attitude, even the financial sector, even the banks. I tried to open a corporate account. This is one of the leading banks in the Philippines. I will not name. Most of them are members of our MAP. They asked for 13 documents. 13 documents when they are already digitalized already. This is just too much. That is what the regulators ask for, a lot of documents. But this doesn't really help us, right? Okay, those are suggestions.
Quick reaction from the panel. I'll make a quick reaction as well, and then kind of to close the panel, but yeah, maybe, like the reaction first, and then kind of also put in your closing closing comments, and because I think that statement is already more than enough for us. Okay.
I do agree that we can also invite a regulator so that we can have their, as well as they can have feedback from the stakeholders, all stakeholders, and they include that. So I've been in the government as a regulator and monitoring in terms of labor and employment, and then project evaluation under the Office of the President. So it's really, we need to consult, as a former government officer, we need to consult the stakeholders so that we can get their inputs as well. So not only in the policy, but also on the implementation side.
Yeah, I think it's already hard to start up a business here in the Philippines. And it's always harder when you have to submit 13 pieces of paper. So that's a given. And that I think the hard part with the government is it's never forward-looking. It's always reactionary to the way power developers do their business. So, sorry, last point, no? So, like for example, the hard part with the regulators is they're not moving as fast as technology is moving. So they're always lagging behind. Now you have the concepts of virtual power plants, virtual trading platforms for smaller grids, and there's no regulations for that, although I've heard the regulations are getting circulated around. So again, this is the hard part with the regulators, and again, they're trying. It's not for lack of trying. It's part of the system that needs change.
Yeah, thanks, Cora, for that reaction. And I guess all I can say is collaborate. No, I guess that's very important in this day and age, especially when you talk about ESG. No, so ESG is not one man's problem. No, it's everybody's problem. It's a global problem actually, and for us to make I guess significant impact, no, everyone must be working together. Private sector, public sector, regulators, corporates, and even individuals must have their own contributions. So I guess that's my reaction. Also, the importance of national collaboration and also the global collaboration to address all these issues.
All right. Thank you to the panel. My quick reaction to that one is that I'll show a quick experience. Yeah, that during the pandemic, there were procedures in place in lieu of physical paper transactions that were already in place, not just by private sector, private companies, but also with the government. Recently, I heard that the government is now going back to the paper transactions on some aspects because, to be honest, I don't really know. But for example, in interactions with the SEC or the BIR, even just getting a report from the SEC, the annual report from the SEC, before they would send you a PDF. Today, they have to physically deliver it to you so that you can have a look and see how a company is performing. And I think that's already an indication, where we're headed right now. Is it because of the pandemic that really move forward, and then once we're already okay, are we going to go back? Or is it something that everyone should really aspire to, even in even our renewable energy partners? Can we steer the conversation forward to the reality? I mean, not really realities, but hopefully the future prospects of energy, not just here in the Philippines, but also around the world. And with that, I'd like to thank the panel, and I'd like to thank everyone that's the organizers of this event. Happy lunch, everyone. Thank you.